Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaham. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadhi Prachatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Bindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna everyone. So this will be the last chapter of fourth canto. So today, with this chapter, we will be completing the fourth canto. So if you are in a position to read out the text, please raise your hand so that I can pick up accordingly. Excellent. So let's begin with Purna Mataji. So this is chapter 31 of fourth canto. So I'll share the screen. Purna Mataji, you can read the first 8 texts, please.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Yeah. Chapter 31. Narad instructs the Prachetas. The great Saint Maitreya, text 1. The great Saint Maitreya continued. After that, the Prachetas lived at home for thousands of years and developed perfect knowledge in spiritual consciousness. At last, they remembered the blessings of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and left home, putting their wife in charge of a perfect son. Text 2. The Prachetas went to the seashore in the west, where the great liberated sage Jajali was residing. After perfecting the spiritual knowledge by which one becomes equal toward all living entities, the Prachetas became perfect in Krishna consciousness. Text 3. After practicing the yogasana for mystic yoga, the Prachetas managed to control their life air, mind, words, and external vision. Thus, by the pranayam process, they were completely relieved of material attachment. By remaining perpendicular, they could concentrate their minds on the uppermost Brahman. While they were practicing this pranayam, the great sage Narad, who is worshipped both by demons and by demigods, came to see them. Text 4. As soon as the Prachetas saw that the great sage Narad had appeared, they immediately got up even from their asanas. As required, they immediately offered obeisances and worshipped him. And when they saw that Narad Muni was properly seated, they began to ask him questions. Text 5. All the Prachetas began to address the great sage Narad. O great sage, O Brahman, we hope you met with no disturbances while coming here. It is due to our great fortune that we are now able to see you. By the traveling of the sun, people are relieved from the fear of the darkness of night, a fear brought about by thieves and rogues. Similarly, your traveling is like the sun's, for you drive away all kinds of fear. Text 8. O Master, may we inform you that because of our being overly attached to family affairs, we almost forgot the instructions we received from Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu. Text 7. Dear Master, kindly enlighten us in transcendental knowledge, which may act as a torchlight, by which we may cross the darkness nescence of material existence. Text 8. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear Vidur, being thus petitioned by the Prachetas, the supreme devotee Narad, who is always absorbed in thoughts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, began to reply. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Mataji. Appreciate that. So in the previous chapter, we had seen that after completing their 1,000 years of penance under the waters, Prachetas had the audience of Lord Vishnu. So Lord Vishnu came to see them in the waters. We all know that they had met Lord Shiva. So so there was a nice description about the Lord's beauty. Then the Lord spoke to Prachetas in the previous chapter, and Lord said to them that he was very pleased. He was pleased because of their mutual friendship. Mutual friendship, and they also had respect to the seniors. So we discussed this is how devotees should behave. Among the devotees, there should be nice friendship, love, and there should be nice loving relationship. If we are all together in a friendly way, worship the Supreme Lord without quarreling, without envying each other. If we just worship the Lord, having accepted spiritual master, they had accepted their spiritual master, and Lord Shiva has their spiritual master. Having accepted spiritual master, worship the Lord with a loving relationship, without quarreling, and displaying respect to the seniors, then the Lord will be very pleased. That's what the Lord spoke to them, and he asked them to ask for a benediction. Wonderful prayers they offered, and their main proposal was that, O Lord, please bless us with the association of your pure devotees. Oh my Lord, just see, we got your audience because we had met your devotee Lord Shiva, just a few minutes. And that's how we got your audience today. Oh Lord, our only benediction, only request is that you bless us with the association of devotees, whichever life we may be in, whichever species we may be in. But life after life, irrespective of whichever species we may be in, on whichever planet we may be in, and however many births we have taken, we may take, we don't mind. But if you could kindly bless us with the association of your devotees, pure devotees, it will be, our great fortune. And that was the main point. There were a number of things, but they were just simply begging for that blessing. What is that blessing? Bless us with the association of your pure devotees, because a moment association with a pure devotee cannot be compared to liberation, or any material wealth, the heavenly planet, achieving heavenly planet, like that. It cannot be compared. The moment, even a moment of association with a pure devotee will award greatest benefit. Mm. Ultimately, the greatest benefit means we'll go back to Godhead. Mm. That was their main prayer. And after that, Lord was very pleased with them. And then he said to them that, you would marry Marisha, the daughter of um, the Apsarasa, who is currently being raised by the plants. Uh, and the Lord left, and the Lord actually blessed them because they were princes, isn't it? So sons of king. So they had to rule the kingdom. uh, so the Lord asked them to go and rule the kingdom. mm, and while ruling, you execute devotion, and at the end you will come to me. And so as Lord said, they married to this girl called Marisha, and in her womb, um, they begot one son. Mm. Uh, he was Daksha. We discussed in the previous, like last Thursday, that this Daksha had to take three births. Mm, because of his offense towards Lord Shiva. Initially, he was Daksha, but later, that's one birth, and then later, he got killed by Lord Shiva's associate, um, Virabhadra, if you remember the story. So Lord Shiva's main associate killed Daksha, and then he got goat head. That's the second birth, because his offense was looks like it was fully not fully nullified. So here again, he got another opportunity to take birth as a son of Prachetas. Um, so that's how the chapter ended, previous chapter. In this chapter, we see that Prachetas had ruled um, the kingdom for thousands of years. Uh, that description was not given. Although it was for millions of years, the description was not given here, but their retirement is mentioned in this chapter. Um, as we had seen, they this was the tradition. All the saintly kings at some certain point they retire. They never stay at home. um, that was the system. All the saintly king, they think, they think that staying at home with the family will develop attachment. Mm. And that's why, even though they are very opulent, we had seen this in the case of Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj, after ruling 32,000 years, uh, he enthroned his son Vatsara as king, and then he left for the forest. And then we see King Anga in the same lineage. Anga left for the forest. And in the same lineage, we also had seen Prithu Maharaj and his wife Archi. Um, they left for the forest after ruling for a certain time. And here we see, of course, Pracheta's father, Prachina Barihi, if you remember the story, Prachina Barihi was enlightened by Narada Muni, and he left the kingdom and went to the forest. Here, Prachetas, they remembered the blessings of the Supreme Lord and left home, and putting their wife in charge of a perfect son Daksha, under the care of Daksha. This was the olden system, and that was the system in the olden days. Usually, the wife is taken care by the son. Hmm. And they went to a seashore, and where Jajali, a sage, sage by the name Jajali was residing, and there they were executing this pranayam, pranayam yogasanas. Um, and they were executing this, controlling, doing the breathing exercise, thereby controlling the mind and senses. Mm. Um, and that time, while they were practicing this breathing exercise and the yogasanas, practicing meditation, at that time, great sage Narad came there. Um, so let me see. Let me show a picture. Then it will just. This is the picture which will defect. So Narada is a spaceman. He, if you see, Narada was there in the life of Dhruv Maharaj. Every saint, I think, every devotee, I think, in the life of every devotee there is Narada Muni. Uh, their father, just now we discussed, was delivered by Narada Muni. So then they requested Narada Muni to enlighten them. They were very humble. They say that we although we had seen the Lord, we had forgotten His instruction. They were humble. They wanted to hear from Narada Muni, and so they requested Narada to enlighten them, and with the transcendental knowledge. And there is one nice verse here. We will try and read the purport. Purnamataji, would you like to read that? Text
Sure,
7.
Prabhuji.
Text 7 purport.
Sure, Prabhuji. Text 7, purport. The Prachetas requested Narad to enlighten them in transcendental knowledge. Generally, when a common man meets a saintly person, he wishes to get some material benediction. However, the Prachetas were not interested in material benefit, for they had enjoyed all this sufficiently. Nor did they want the fulfillment of their material desires. They were simply interested in crossing the ocean of nascence. Everyone should be interested in getting out of these material clutches. Everyone should approach a saintly person in order to be enlightened in this connection. One should not bother a saintly person to get blessings for material enjoyment. Generally, householders receive saintly persons to get their blessings, but the real aim is to become happy in the material world. Asking such material benedictions is not, if you could scroll up, Prabhuji, please. Asking such material benedictions is not recommended in the Shastras.
Thank you. You wanna sum up from this, Purnamataji?
Yeah, sure, Prabhuji, I'll try. So the Prachetas, Narad Muni is meeting. I mean, Prachetas are meeting Narad Muni, and they are requesting Narad Muni to enlighten them in transcendental knowledge. And here, a note has been made that generally, when a common man, like probably me, would meet, they would ask for some material benediction. However, the Prachetas were not interested in material benefit. As we just heard that they had ruled for very many years, so they had enjoyed it sufficiently, and they were contented with it. So they did not want any fulfillment of material desires also. So they were simply interested in crossing the ocean of nascence. Here it is mentioned that Prabhupada is saying that everyone should be interested in getting out of these material clutches, and everyone should approach a saintly person in order to be enlightened and not to get material satisfaction or material requests being fulfilled. So, and again, is said that generally, usually householders, they receive saintly persons to get their blessings. but their real aim is to be happy in the material world. And asking such material benedictions is not recommended in the Shastras, which is a point which we all should note. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much for nicely summarizing. Okay, so now Narada, we will move on to the next section. Narada Muni enlightens Prachetas. Hmm? So that's we read from text 9 till text 22. Kiran Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. How are you? Good to see you.
Thank you. Excuse me, just one second. I'm just going to read from the book.
Yeah, whichever you are convenient. From
Okay, I'll try.
text 9 till 22.
Okay. The great sage Narada said, when living entities born to engage in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the supreme controller, his birth, all his fruitive activities, his life span, his mind, and his words are all factually perfect.
Yeah.
Text
So
10.
1 second. I may summarize some of the texts then and there, like here. It is nicely mentioned. Narada Muni begins that when we engage in our devotionals, in the devotional service and worship the Supreme Lord, this is what happened. Our birth and our lifespan and our mind, our words, all become factually perfect. Please move on.
Okay. A civilized human being has three kinds of births. The first birth is by a pure father and mother, and this birth is called birth by semen. The next birth takes place when one is initiated by the spiritual master, and this birth is called Savitra. The third birth, called Yajnika, takes place when one is given the opportunity to worship Lord Vishnu. Despite the opportunities for attaining such births, even if one gets the lifespan of a demigod, if one does not actually engage in the service of the Lord, everything is useless. Similarly, one's activities may be mundane or spiritual, but they are useless if they are not meant for satisfying the Lord. Should I carry on?
Yeah. So this is also nicely described here. So we have three births, birth by parents, and then when we take initiation, then that is second birth, Dvija. And it is also mentioned there is third birth here, like when we are given opportunity to worship Lord Vishnu. Three births. So here it is said that everything is useless if we do not use it in the service of the Lord. Or whatever we have, we should try and use it in the service of the Lord. Or satisfy the Lord. Atapumbir varnashrama vibhakasha swanushtitasya dharmasya samsiddhiraritoshanam. By pleasing, by satisfying the Lord, all perfection is achieved. Text 11, please.
Okay. Text 11. Without devotional service, what is the meaning of severe austerities? The process of hearing, the power of speech, the power of mental speculations, elevated intelligence, strength, and the power of the senses.
Carry on, please.
Okay, text 12. Transcendental practices that do not ultimately help one realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead are useless. Be they mystic yoga practices, the analytical study of matter, severe austerity, the acceptance of sannyas, or the study of Vedic literature. All these may be very important aspects of spiritual advancement, but unless one understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, all these processes are useless.
Thank you. These two verses are very, very, very important. It They tell us the value of bhakti or devotion. Without devotion, whatever we have is zero. That's what it tells. Whether we undergo severe austerities or other things, we may have a very good argument power, we can speculate nicely, and we may have material intelligence, strength, and so forth. We may do so many yogasanas, and even read Vedic literatures and undergo sannyasa. But the main point is bhakti. Devotion is important. There is one famous verse: Aradito yadhari tapasa tatha kim, naradito yadhari tapasa tatha kim. If you worship the Lord, then there is no need to. What is the use of austerity? If you do not worship the Lord, what is the use of austerity? Aradito yadhari tapasa tatha kim. What is the use of your austerity if you are worshipping the Lord? And if you are not worshipping, what is the use of it? Antar bahir yadhari tapasa tatah kim, na antar bahir yadhari tapasa tatah kim. So this particular verse tells us that devotion is important. Um, Even though we may possess so many other things, they all become they can be valued only when we add bhakti to these things. Text 13, please.
It's actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's the original source of all self-realization. Consequently, the goal of auspicious activities, karma, yajna, yoga, and bhakti, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 14. As pouring water on the root of a tree energizes the trunk, branches, twigs, and everything else, and as supplying food to the stomach enlivens the senses, the limbs of the body, simply worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead through devotional service automatically satisfies the demigods who are parts of the Supreme Personality.
Thank you very much. So this text 14, these are all the teachings of Narada to Prachetas. The essence of Narada's teaching, as always, is devotion to the Supreme Lord. Yeah. So here, it's a famous verse, and if you would like, you can memorize the Sanskrit and English. If not, just the English, and if not, just the essence of English, you can memorize. This is with this analogy, Narad, the sage Narad, clearly explains the importance of bhakti. Yata taror mula nishechanena truptyanti tatskanda bhujopashakaha pranopaharascha yatendriyanam tataiva sarvarhanamachyuteja. Very famous example. You might have heard this analogy here and there, but this is where it comes from. Proper uses now and then. Just as when we pour water at the root of the tree, what happens? The trunk, the branches, sub-branches, leaves, twigs, fruits, every part of the tree gets nourished just by pouring water at the root. And similarly, if you worship Krishna, you satisfy everyone. If you satisfy Lord Vishnu, you satisfy everyone. Somebody may say, okay, I pour water at the root and also like to pour water to the branches and leaves. What is the problem? No problem. Narada Muni gives another example, very. Pranopaharascha yatendriyanam. The second analogy is that by feeding the tummy, you feed entire body. So when you are hungry, you can't feed the food to your legs or your hands, other parts of the body. You can only feed to the tummy. So this is a very beautiful verse. And Narada Muni says with this, by worshipping, by pleasing Lord Vishnu, you please everyone else. So there is no need to do a separate endeavor. So this is a very nice verse. Let me see that if we can read the translation. Yeah, maybe we can read the translation of this one.
Purport. Should I read the full thing?
Please.
Sometimes people ask, why is this Krishna consciousness environment simply advocates worship of Krishna to the exclusion of the demigods? The answer is given in this verse. The example of pouring water on the root of a tree is very appropriate in Bhagavad Gita. It is said,
Urdhva Moolam Adha Shakam.
Urdhva Milam Adha Shakam. This cosmic manifestation has expanded downward, and the root is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As the Lord confirms in Bhagavad Gita, I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Krishna is the root of everything. Therefore, rendering service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, means automatically serving all the demigods. Sometimes it's argued that karma and jnana require a mixture of bhakti in order to be successfully executed. And sometimes it is argued that bhakti also requires karma and jnana for its successful termination. The fact is, however, that although karma and jnana cannot be successful without bhakti, bhakti does not require the help of karma and jnana. Actually, as described by Srila Rupa Goswami, Anidya.
Yeah, you can leave out the Sanskrit. Anya bhilashita shunyam jnana karma dhyanavrutam.
Pure devotional service should not be contaminated by the touch of karma and jnana. Modern society is involved in various types of philanthropic works, humanitarian works, and so on. But people do not know that the activities will never be successful unless Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is brought into the center. One may ask what harm there is in worshipping Krishna and the different parts of his body and the demigods. And the answer is also given in this verse. The point is that by worshipping food to
By
the
supplying food.
but the point is that by supplying food to the stomach, the indriyas, the senses, are automatically satisfied. If one tries to feed the eyes or ears independently, the result is only havoc. Simply by supplying food to the stomach, we satisfy all the senses. It is neither necessary nor feasible to render separate service to the individual senses. The conclusion is that by serving Krishna, everything is complete. As confirmed in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna Bhakti Kele
Sarva
Sarva
karma
Karma
krutahaya.
Pratahaya. If one is engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, everything is automatically accomplished.
Thank you very much, Kiran Mataji. So it's self-explanatory. I thought it's better we read it. But the essence is that by worshipping Krishna, By pleasing Krishna, we please everyone. And all the demigods are pleased. Sarvarunam Achyuteja. All the demigods are pleased automatically. Okay, let's move on. Text 15.
Okay. During the rainy season, water is generated from the sun, and in due course of time during the summer season, the very same water is again absorbed by the sun. Similarly, all living entities, moving and inert, are generated from the earth, and again after some time they all return to the earth as dust. Similarly, everything emanates from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in due course of time, everything enters into Him again.
Please carry on.
Text 16. Just as the sunshine is non-different from the sun, the cosmic manifestation is also non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality is therefore all-pervasive within this material creation. When the senses are active, they appear to be part and parcel of the body. But when the body is asleep, the activities are unmanifest. Similarly, the whole cosmic creation appears different and yet non-different from the Supreme Person. Text 17. Darkness, illumination, and clouds sometimes appear and sometimes disappear. But even when they have disappeared, the potency is still there, always existing. In the sky, sometimes we see clouds, sometimes rainfall, and sometimes snow. Sometimes we see night, sometimes day, sometimes illumination, and sometimes darkness. All this exists due to the sun, but the sun is unaffected by these changes. Similarly, although the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the original cause of the total cosmic manifestation, he is unaffected by the material existence. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita.
Oh, are you reading the purport?
Yeah, sorry.
No, go on.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Text 17 and 18.
Okay. My dear king, sometimes in the sky, I think I've read this one.
Okay, have you? Okay, then that's fine. 18, please.
Okay. Because the Supreme Lord is the cause of all causes, he is the super soul of all individual living entities, and he exists as both the remote and immediate cause. Since he is aloof from the material emanations, he is free from their interactions and is Lord of material nature. You should therefore engage in his devotional service, thinking yourself qualitatively one with him.
Text 19.
By showing mercy to all living entities, being satisfied somehow or the other, the controlling the senses from sense enjoyment, one can very quickly satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Janardana.
Thank you. So this is again, text 19 is a very famous verse. Dhayaya sarvabhuteshu santushtya yena kenava. So sarvendriyopa shantyacha tushyantyashu janardana. So here various how to please the Lord, how to please Lord Janardana is given. We have to show mercy to all the living entities and satisfy in in every condition of our life, and and controlling the senses. Mm. So this way we can please the Lord. So here Prabhupada mentions about showing mercy to all living entities. So devotees, they are very compassionate. Prabhupada explains this, that they see in his own life, Prabhupada was actually staying in Vrindavan, but decided to come to the West. And, he preached to everyone here in the West. He saw the super soul and soul. He did not see the covering, external covering, that is this body. So this is one way we can please the Supreme Lord, show mercy to all living entities. How do we show mercy to all living entities? By giving this Krishna consciousness, by preaching, and satisfy with whatever Lord gives, and restricting the senses from sense enjoyment means then we engage our senses in devotion. That is the best restriction. So this way we can please the Supreme Personality of Krishna, Janardhan. Okay, text 20, please, Mataji.
Okay. Am I reading it?
You can read. I think there are only 3 verses, and then we can do the next section by another one, another devotee.
Okay. Being completely cleansed of all material desires, the devotees are freed from all mental contamination. Thus, they can always think of the Lord constantly and address Him very feelingly. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, knowing Himself to be controlled by His devotees, does not leave them for a second, just as the sky overhead never becomes invisible. Text 21. The Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes very dear to those devotees who have no material possessions but are fully happy in possessing the devotional service of the Lord. Indeed, the Lord relishes the devotional activities of such devotees. Those who are puffed up with material education, wealth, aristocracy, and fruitive activities are very proud of possessing material things, and they often deride the devotees. Even if such people offer the Lord worship, the Lord never accepts them. Text 22. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead is self-sufficient, He becomes dependent on His devotees. He does not care for the goddess of fortune, nor the kings and demigods who are after the favors of the goddess of fortune. Where is that person who is actually grateful and will not worship the personality of Godhead?
Thank you very much, Mataji, for patiently reading this wonderful section. So this section, last 3 verses, it shows the loving relationship between the Lord and his devotees. Although Lord is self-sufficient, he becomes dependent on his devotees. Saying this, Narada Muni actually advises Prachetas to worship the Supreme Lord. Okay, so next section, let's see, Bhuneshwari Radha Mataji, are you there? You're muted, looks like. We can't hear you.
Prabhu. Yes, Prabhuji, I'm here. Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol, from 23rd till the end of chapter.
Okay. Hare Krishna. The text 23. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear King Vidura, Sri Narad Muni, the son of Lord Brahma, thus described all these relationships with the Supreme Personality of Godhead to the Prasetas. Afterward, he returned to Brahmalok. Text 24. Hearing from Narad's mouth the glories of the Lord, which vanquished all the ill fortune of the world, the Prasetas also became attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Meditating on his lotus feet, they advanced to the ultimate destination. Text 25. My dear Vidura, I have told you everything you wanted to know about the conversation between Narad and the Prasetas, the conversation describing the glories of the Lord. I have related this as far as possible. Text 26. Sukdev Goswami continued, O best of kings, King Parikshit, I have now finished telling about the descendants of the first son of Swayambhu Manu, Uttanapad. I shall now try to relate the activities of the descendants of Priyavrata, the second son of Swayambhuva Manu. Please hear them attentively. Text 27. Although Maharaj Priyavrata received instructions from the great sage Narad, he still engaged in ruling the earth. After fully enjoying material possessions, he divided his property among his sons. He then attained the position by which he could return home back to Godhead. Text 28. My dear king, in this way, after hearing the transcendental messages of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees from the great sage Maitreya, Vidura was overwhelmed with ecstasy. With tears in his eyes, he immediately fell down at the lotus feet of his Guru, his spiritual master. He then fixed the Supreme Personality of Godhead within the core of his heart. Text 29. Sri Vidura said, O great mystic, O greatest of all devotees, by your causeless mercy, I have been shown the path of liberation from this world of darkness. By following this path, a person liberated from the material world can return home back to Godhead. Text 30. Sukdev Goswami continued, Vidura thus offered obeisances unto the great sage Maitreya and taking his permission started for the city of Hastinapur to see his own kinsmen, although he had no material desires. Text 31. O king, those who hear these topics about kings who are completely surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead obtain without difficulty a long life, wealth, good reputation, good fortune, and ultimately the opportunity to return home back to Godhead. And I think that's the end of the canto.
Yes, end of the
Thank you.
canto. End of the canto. Thank you very much, Mataji, for finishing the fourth canto. Right. Okay, so Narada Muni had enlightened them, enlightened Prachetas by glorifying devotional service onto Sri Krishna. And then he left to Brahmaloka. Then Prachetas executed devotion and went back to Godhead. This was the conversation. This was actually narrated by Maitreya to Vidura. The conversation between Vidura and Maitreya has begun in the beginning of third canto. Third canto. And, yeah, so long. Third canto, there were more than 30 chapters. And here 31 chapters. So this was the conversation between Maitreya and Vidura. Vidura was very much satisfied after hearing the wonderful narrations of various saintly kings. And, he had seen in this canto itself, he had seen how Dhruva Maharaj retired, how King Anga retired, how Pruth Maharaj retired, how Prachina Barihi retired, how Prachetas retired. Then he decided, let me go back Hastinapur. Let me deliver my blind brother Dhritarashtra. Although he had no intention, no material intention to go back to, because he was on pilgrimage. Vidura was on pilgrimage. He had no material intention, but he went back home after the war had finished. After the war between Kauravas and Pandavas had finished. So he went back, and then this description comes in the first canto, 13th chapter. And he enlightens Dhritarashtra, his brother, blind brother. And by enlightening, he takes them out of home, Hastinapur, and they go to Himalayas, and where Dhritarashtra, because of the association and blessings of Vidura, he got delivered. He went back to Godhead. Both Dhritarashtra and his wife Gandhari. This comes in chapter 13 of first canto. You can go and read it again. Wonderful chapter. Very, very beautiful chapter. He gave a very, he gave a big dose to Dhritarashtra. Big dose. Sometimes chastisement works. If you want to enlighten, sometimes praise works. Sometimes chastisement works. So he actually rebuked his brother, the blind brother Dhritarashtra. Even though there is old age, etc., you are still depending on, these Pandavas here, waiting for a morsel of rice. And there are so many you are suffering from so many diseases, but still you are residing at home. Your children are they're dead. Still you're trying to live like this. So this way, he enlightens Dhritarashtra. And because of the mercy of Vidura, again we see, because although he was, he was partial to his own sons, and because of the blessings or association of wonderful devotee Vidura, he was delivered. And then Shukadeva Goswami tells Parikshit Maharaj, that I will now describes the pastime of another son of Uttanapada named Priyavrata. So far, from third canto till fourth canto, we had seen the lineage of Uttanapada, but mainly in the line from Dhruva Maharaj onwards. Swayambhu Manu had two sons, Uttanapada and Priyavrata. Yes. So Uttanapada line we discussed. Uttanapada had son Dhruva. And from Dhruva lineage, there comes King Anga, King Vena, King Prutu, and then Prachetas, Prachina Barhi. This was the lineage of Dhruva Maharaj and Uttanapada. So there is another son of Swayambhu Manu by the name Priyavrata. So Shukadeva Goswami says that he is going to narrate this lineage of Priyavrata now. So that will begin in the fifth canto, and there is Palashruti. The Palashruti says that those who hear these topics about the saintly kings, who are completely engaged in devotional service to the Supreme Lord, so attain all good fortune just by hearing these pastimes of saintly kings. We get enlightened. The purification takes place, and one day, by the mercy of Guru and Gauranga, we can also go back to Godhead. So with this, I will stop here. Sundara Chaitanya posted a message saying that 64 chapters of discussion between Vidura and Maitreya. And
it's a very long chat. They had quite a long chat.
Long chat. And they did not get bored at all. No. So next week, I will see what we can do. I've got two thoughts. One is to begin the fifth canto. Another thought is that maybe we can relook at some of the chapters and get the essence of fourth canto. quick essence, maybe in a couple of weeks. Again, just going through entire fourth canto quickly. Very brief summary, like each day I can do like maybe a 10 chapter summary, just in this chapter like this. But there are 30 chapters. Let us see how I feel and what enlightenment I get from within, and then accordingly we will move forward. But once again, thank you so much for your patience and for your determination, and for continuously attending the Srimad Bhagavatam classes. This is very much required. Just by attending Thursday 1 hour, just imagine, we managed to complete 4 cantos. And we were also not only looking at the overview, but we were also reading some of the very important purports of Srila Prabhupada as well from the book. So really appreciate, and I will stop here. If anybody has any questions, any comments, please do so. Otherwise, Krishna willing, we shall see you all next week.
Prabhuji, I have one
Thank you.
question. Sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
Can I ask a question, or is it a bit late?
Sure. No problem. Yeah.
Okay, so just now it was mentioned that people who are very proud and very pompous of their possessions, their worship is not accepted. So are these the people who are like very wealthy, or is it the general people? And also, what about the everyday struggles that everybody goes through? And your mind is diverted. So is their worship accepted?
Very good question. So the simplest answer is that that's why we need a saintly person in our life. Okay, and we should act under the guidance of a saintly person.
Okay.
Then our worship will be accepted, right? So with regards to, say, someone just for the namesake they worship, namesake worship, Lord will not accept, being proud of their material education, wealth, aristocracy, and possessing so many material things, and they actually insult the devotees. And Lord will not accept such devotion. If you remember the simple story of Duryodhana and Vidura, when Krishna had been to Hastinapur, Duryodhana arranged a big meal, very opulent meal, royal meal, but rejecting that, he went to Vidura's home. There he accepted a simple banana. Haribol, there is something happening here. Okay. Yeah, so I hope with that analogy, it is clear. Vidura's and Duryodhana's analogy, where Krishna accepted Vidura's reception, not Duryodhana's. And with regards to daily struggle, yes, that will be there. I totally agree. But irrespective of the struggle, devotees still continue to worship the Lord. We get disturbed, but we'll bring it back. Wherever the mind goes, we'll bring it back under the training. Training is required. But when we engage, as we engage, we get purification. We get fixed up. It doesn't happen overnight, but just by hearing these pastimes and chanting the holy names of the Lord, taking the association of the Lord, eating prasad, this is called sadhana bhakti. By doing this process, we get fixed up in devotion. The unwanted things in our heart will be destroyed eventually.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, so yeah, I hope that answers your question. So Bhuvaneshwari Mataji says, I also think summary would be very useful. Let me see. Then we will try and do a very, very brief summary. I was thinking, because there were so many wonderful, wonderful stories, pastimes. Then we'll try and do so that recap some of these wonderful pastimes.
Will be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. May
Thank
I ask
you.
something?
Sure,
thank you.
sure.
Yeah.
Alka, is that Alka Mataji?
Yes. And it's very good to hear every week, and it reinforces the right thing to do. However, I wonder if you could help us, continuing with the last question, in our day-to-day life, you know, pure devotional service is where it is recommended in all the different scriptures. But in our day-to-day modern life, please could you give us some examples of what is a pure devotional service in our occupational, in our devotional, in our other different areas?
Sure. Thank you very much, Mataji. So, for us devotees, there is no need to reinvent the wheel. Prabhupada had given us a formula. So ideally, in our daily life, we should have a schedule, right? So, say for example, you're a doctor, and you have a schedule. To become a doctor, you had to discipline yourself, right? Definitely over the years to achieve what you had already achieved. There is a discipline required. So we have a schedule given by Srila Prabhupada. There should be a fixed schedule. Ideally, we get up early in the morning, we worship the Lord, we chant the holy names of the Lord, and there should be a morning schedule, and we hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So if it is not possible, we are, say, for example, in our home, we just listen to Bhaktivedanta Manor on a regular basis. Even if we are cooking in the kitchen, we just put that on, and we just listen every day Srimad Bhagavatam. So there is a morning schedule is required, and a regular association of devotees is required. So if we are doing this morning, we also get the online association, but physical association would be good on a weekly basis or any other Sangha. So, and Prabhupada said, simply follow the process. You get up early morning, whatever, like if you're getting up at 6, try and get up at 5:45. And then slowly get up like that. Try and aim for 4:30, 4 o'clock, slowly. And you do the morning program. Morning program is very, very important for our advancement. So the pure devotion doesn't happen overnight. So we have to practice as guided by Srila Prabhupada, and do your duty. And if we do the morning program, go on do our duty, no worries. And then the consciousness is better. Throughout the day, our consciousness is better if we do in the morning. If we hear in the morning, our consciousness is better always. And with the money that you get, what you do is try to use that in the service of the Lord. Keep yourself some for your family maintenance, and the rest, whatever we earn, try and see how can I use this in the service of the Lord, whether it is for preaching, for other purpose, anything else. And also, as we get closer to the retirement, we should reduce the number of days we work and spend more time for Krishna, right? Say I'm now 52, close to 52. Then I try and reduce my work and work only few days. I got the opportunity, I got the flexibility, spend more time, try and read and engage and associate with the devotees more and more. So I think this is the process, but main thing is that we should have a regular association. You just now mentioned, because just by attending this Sangha, you feel it reinforces. That should be there on a regular basis. It's not on a weekly basis, but it should be there on a regular basis, right? Sundar Chaitanya, you want to add anything to this?
I was just agreeing with you. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just agreeing. I was just reading a verse that, like you mentioned, this Yatatoror Mula verse. And so then, okay, we realize now, right, devotional service, most important thing. Then, like, you gave example of you can water the leaves and branches, or you can water the root. And which one you'll choose? You'll choose the root. Now, someone will say, but I can also water both, right? Leaves and branches and root. However, that's an inefficient use of the resource. So then the next question that naturally will come is that, okay, if I'd always need to water the root, how can I do that? And that is just like, no matter what we do, if we wake up, maybe the first thing in our day, we just say, today, my Lord, I'm going to offer this day as a day to you. That's a step. Okay, when I'm doing my economics revision for my exam I'm doing so I can then do, if I do well in that exam, I can use that for your preaching. That's now it's now become the root. It's no longer watering the leaf and branches. So I think that, I mean, everyone on this call is very, very intelligent, much more intelligent than me, because you already know what you're, doing for your careers and things. So you have lots of intelligence. Without that intelligence, how else you could have progressed? So use that same intelligence and then find a way, okay, how I can connect this one to Krishna. How can I make this do it for Krishna? And then 100% everything will work its way from mixed devotion right now to pure devotion. And the example I was just thinking of when you said all of this, you said like plan, right? I mean, for doctor, I'm doing nothing in comparison to what doctors do for my subject, but doctor means plan, discipline, structure. And because of that process, you became a doctor. And same thing. So it's like Dhruv Maharaj. So many material. He had such a big material desire. Revenge against stepmom, and the bigger kingdom, even bigger than Lord Brahma. Like, that's not a small desire. That's a huge material desire. But he just followed what Narad Muni said. And then in the end, sees Lord Vishnu, my Lord, I came here looking for broken glass, but I found diamond. So the process will fix. Don't worry about that, whether I have material desire or not. Just do the process. Process will fix. You don't worry too much about that. Connect it to Krishna and then move on. That's it.
So Prabhupada calls it this as panacea,
That's
cure
it.
for all. Cure for all. We have to take this dose of tablet, hearing, chanting, association on a regular basis. I hope that answers your question, Alka Mataji.
Yes, thank you. Well, my question was that when you are in the job for 8 hours, 10 hours, or 12 hours, how do you spiritualize your occupation? But you have answered it.
Yeah. I think if he do that, at that moment you may not remember, but before you went to the work, you did it. That becomes spirituality. And also we have to see, okay, with this job, whatever the little income that I'm getting, I will try and use some of that in Krishna's service. Then that entire job will also become spiritual. It is said, some Acharya said that before we go to bed, we should think, let me go to sleep now so that I can wake up early in the morning and do nice sadhana, spiritual practice in the morning. That entire sleep becomes spiritual. So yes, during the work, sometimes it's difficult, but if we do in the morning, then that will have a greater influence on us, on our consciousness.
Yes, thank you. Definitely, it works on the consciousness while doing sadhana. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, Prabhuji, I have one more thing to say. Next week, when you summarize, sorry to interrupt.
No, I'm happy. I'm happy. Like, I'm also very free today. Usually devotees leave by this time, but everybody stayed today. So I'm a little bit surprised and also happy.
So when you summarize everything next week, can we get an opportunity to ask few more questions?
Yeah, sure. I will see what is the best way to summarize. I think I will summarize in a story form little bit. I think, try and summarize good few chapters. very essence of it, not going to be, like this. I will have to see good few chapters we will summarize, maybe essential points, story in a nutshell, and some of the key lessons like that. You are always welcome to ask questions at the end, or when I say, in between also, if I ask you to do that, you can do that as well.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much.
Padma Mataji, have you got any questions, or you just simply raised?
Prabhuji, I just wanted to say a few things, if I'm allowed.
Sure.
Firstly, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. I wouldn't have done this without this class, without this, and I'm ever so grateful for this service from you, Prabhuji. And secondly, congratulations to Sundara Chaitanya Prabhu for his initiation. Very proud of you. Very proud of you. And thirdly, Prabhuji, for when you're summarizing the chapter 4, would you also give us 2 or 3 slokas that you mentioned are very important, or devotees to kind of think about and, if possible, learn? If you could give it in the summary, that'd be great, Prabhuji.
Okay, so when I'm narrating, you want me to just highlight some of the important verses as well?
Just 1 or 2 in the entire 4th canto.
Sure. I will definitely. There are plenty, but I will give a few. Like this today, say for example, I mentioned 2 examples. Yes, one is 14, another is 19.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
So like that. Go on.
And
sorry.
one last thing. I find Krishna very addictive. The more I listen, more I do, I want to do more. And I'm spending more and more time. And then suddenly I feel this Maya Devi is putting a little seed in my head of fear of missing out. I feel, oh my God, I'm doing all of this away from what people normally do, what I was normally doing. What if this is this is all in our heads? The scriptures are all in our heads, and we are in a big delusion. And I've read this lesson from Prabhupada. Once he said, if at the end of your life you practice Krishna consciousness, you find that Krishna is there, then you are a winner. If you find out Krishna is not there, and you've not done your Krishna consciousness, then you are a very big loser. So I understand that, and I also understand that reading the scriptures, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, repeatedly increases your faith. But that little seed sometimes comes to my mind when I feel I'm giving more time, and then suddenly that thing comes into my mind, and I think it shouldn't be happening. How do I stop that from coming into my head?
Okay, thank you so much. If I understand correctly, the last statement, you are sometimes thinking that you are giving more time for Krishna. Is that your thing?
Mm-hmm. Sometimes I feel, see, we are basing all our Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada's teachings, everything is based on our scriptures that we've got from the disciplinic succession. But sometimes this stupid scientific brain of mine thinks there's no evidence. There is no real evidence of these scriptures. It's come down the disciplinic succession.
Sometimes there is a question, there's a doubt that happens, like suddenly. Yes, I understand. So I think maybe Sundar Chaitanya would be a good person for this to answer. Okay, go on, Sundar Chaitanya.
I don't know about a good person, but this is my topic of interest. Mataji, this is actually not it's not a stupid question. You said stupid. It's not stupid. It's a very nice question, because this is very fundamental, like how we know scriptures are real. I mean, we cannot test the spiritual things from our material standpoint, because we are, unable to access that. But at least those material things which are there, we should be able to test. And any of the material knowledge you take from Shastra, which you test, you will find very, very completely accurate. Whether it be Ayurveda, whether it be astronomy, you know, the Surya Siddhanta has perfect astronomical calculations. Even this line is there in Hanuman Chalisa. Yuga Sahasra Yojana Parabhanu. Yuga means 12,000, Sahasra 1,000, and Yojana roughly 8 miles. So 12,000 into 1,000 into 8 becomes 96 million miles distance between here and the sun, Parabhanu. So that's there. Pi is given in the Rig Veda to 28 decimal places. The embryology is given in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3.
Yeah.
We actually covered this together.
Yes. Yes.
That's given so accurately as well. Canto 3, Chapter 11, atomic time is provided there. And this, I mean, every single bit of knowledge that we want can be found in the scriptures, material and spiritual. And so when we understand, okay, I mean, even there is that description in the Mahabharata of how the Earth planet looks, and we sometimes show that picture. It matches directly with the world map. So in this
But
way, whatever
Prabhuji,
material knowledge is there, we can verify it completely with the Shastra. And also,
Prabhuji,
the other thing...
sorry to interrupt you. I know there is a very limited time. So I know exactly what you're saying because I've heard this in other lectures. But my question is, with the spiritual, you cannot see spirituality with your material flesh eyes. You have to have a
Yes.
spiritual eye. But how do I get that doubt that comes for a few seconds? It's only for a few seconds, but it takes me back and make me think, oh, okay. But then I distract from it and get back on track. But it is coming at the end of the day. There's also one lecture when Prabhuji said, just because you can't see mind, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Just because you can't see buddhi, it doesn't mean it's not there. Yeah. So just because you can't see something, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Seems to know what everybody is saying, but that doubt still seems to pop up.
Yes, okay, I understood. Okay, so you accept that the material things are right, but what about the spiritual ones? Fine. So for this, I would say then we need to have a proper, solid understanding of logic and reasoning. There are several devotees you can have a look at. Naveen Krishna, Nitesh Gaur, he's starting his YouTube channel just based off this logical inquiries into these spiritual topics. We have Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. And so then every single topic which is more subtle, like proving karma, proving existence of God, proving why Srimad Bhagavatam is the essence of all Vedic literature, all of them can be done logically. But beyond logic, there is also the experience. And when you do Krishna consciousness properly, when you're chanting and you actually have the mood, oh yes, Lord Krishna, I'm serving, and you chant and you put the mind on the holy name, then you can actually experience, right? Like the change, and you also see the transformation in your character. So there are indicators like this, you know, how much is humility changing, how much is pride decreasing, like that. You have so many indicators. And all of those things will give the ability to measure. And then at some point when we hit the Brahma Bhuta stage, then this kind of thing becomes an illogical discussion. But because we've not reached that, then we sometimes have that. That's what I'm saying.
I think, it is natural. Sometimes we all have it. No worries. How long we dwell in it, that is the big thing. Yes.
No, not long, Prabhuji. Just for a second,
so that's
it comes
fine. That happens. No, that does happen. That does happen. So even Krishna says, yato nischalati manachanchalamasstiram. So you remember, like in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, wherever mind wanders, bring it back to me. Don't worry, that is the nature that happens. But whenever we hear, you see, like, we get fixed up. It reinforces. So split, sometimes it does happen. That is the nature of the mind. But as we associate and as we, taste the nectar, just like, Srimad Bhagavatam, definitely we feel better. That is the nature of the mind.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Sorry, I've taken up so much of
your time. No, not
Thank
a problem. I am also free today. No problem at all. So thank you very much. And I think, I am able to continue this because you're all attending it. If you didn't attend, if you don't attend on a regular basis, I would not be able to continue this service at all. Because you are attending it, it becomes an impetus for me to, read and come prepare. these chapters. So I am actually eternally grateful to all of you for kindly engaging me in this way. So thank you so much, and hopefully we will try and do some summary from next Thursday onwards, next week onwards. Hare Krishna, Srila
Hare
Prabhupada
Krishna,
ki.
Prabhuji.
Hare
Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare
Thank you
Prabhuji.
so
Krishna.
much.
Thank you so
Hare
much.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.